I awoke in a dreamlike haze, my eyes blurry from lack of use. The first thing I saw was my own right hand, my fingertips pressed against my forehead. I studied the palm for a few moments until my vision improved. It was clean. It moved when my brain called for movement. So far, so good. Gazing up at the low ceiling, I noticed the faded grout in the aging lumber. Behind me was the back of the faded brown couch. I noticed a smell, my own scent coming from the fabric. The odor was, well, clean. That was new. I let out a long, painful sigh, twisting my head. I noticed the bandages on my left side, just below my rib cage. I was in nowhere, still here and presumably still alive, but wounded, as I last remembered I was. In the kitchen, I observed a blurred figure. Squinting, I tried to make out who it might be. My heart raced for a second. Shelley, she was here. I heard a voice, a female voice, and that encouraged me further. Somehow, in the middle of all the madness the world had thrown at us, we'd been reunited. I reached for the figure, her name croaking out through my dry throat and lips. Shelley! The female turned and approached. Each step brought her a little more into focus, but the long brown hair, the youthful face, the slender figure wasn't Shelley's. Well, look who's back amongst the living, the voice replied. My heart fell with the realization my savior was actually my tormentor, Violet. What are you doing here? I asked, trying to roll onto my back and hide my disappointment from the girl. I felt her sit on the wide couch next to my stomach, a cool hand placed on my forehead. Well, Mom and I have this deal, she continued, her fingers brushing my hair away from my face. Every time you get yourself shot and try to die, we come patch you up. But since she can't possibly spend 24 hours without Nate or Dizzy by her side, she leaves me here to watch you die. But I'm not dead, am I? I felt her fingers slide down and adjust the bandages. Nope, she replied, almost sounding disappointed. You're one tough bugger. How bad was it this time? I asked, focusing on her pale face hovering over mine. Well, your fever's gone, so that's good. She pulled the covers over my chest, but it was pretty bad. I don't think I've ever seen that much blood before. She lifted a cup to my lips. Here, Mom says you need fluids to replace the blood you've lost. But just little sips. I don't want to clean up your puke anymore. The water should have slid down my parched throat easily, but it didn't. Instead, I had to force it down, one small dribble at a time. How'd you find me? I asked, shaking the question away as fast as it came out. No, how long? How many days ago did it happen? And how'd you get here so fast? How did you and your mom save me? She rose and headed back toward the kitchen portion of the single room, shaking her head as she did. That's a lot of questions, Bob. Why don't I start at the beginning? I nodded my acceptance. She held the key. Might as well let her tell the tale. I listened for the better part of a half hour, at least what I assumed was that amount of time. Violet either paced or sat next to me on the couch, recounting the horrid story, as she called it. When she finished, I tried to summarize the tale, even if just to get it clear in my own mind. So Dizzy and Nate were coming to see me, I began. Wanted to see if I wanted to go fishing with them. She nodded with no emotion. Yep. They'd heard the shots from the fight and came running, carefully albeit, and found me passed out in the yard somewhere near my front door. I remembered that part. I thought that was my dying moment at the time. They found me and ran back to get your mom? I continued. Why'd they leave me alone? That part didn't make much sense. Dizzy said he couldn't leave Nate alone, and he couldn't let him be on the road alone. She offered, rubbing the towel through her wet hair. So, he had no choice, and you weren't going anywhere. They got Marge. Marge grabbed her medical kit and took off on a run, dragging Violet and Dizzy behind. When they came, she decided I needed to be moved inside, so I either dreamt that part or remembered it somehow. What about the other guy? I asked. I noticed her lips twist. He was deader than dead. You hit him 4 times, once in the heart, according to Dizzy. Dragged him off in the woods across the road. Your pets have been howling ever since. On the couch, safely inside, mother and daughter went about assessing the damage my body had received. Once Marge determined no major organs had been struck, as far as she could tell, she set about cleaning and dressing my wound. Apparently, that's where the fun began.